So I was grateful to be able to talk to my son. I told my ex-wife I felt like, the toxic, horrible things they say about me at their house and have been since the divorce. And this is documented. It's not something I'm being paranoid about or making up. This is, what they've all confessed to me to do. This is what, I heard on the Ring camera while I was in Ireland, directly after the divorce. I mean, the toxicity and the, painful words she says to the kids about me, and this urge for them to pick sides is definite and obvious and recorded. I've got the receipts. But I told her that, and I said I feel like it's hurting the kids to not have their father, to hate half of who they've been raised as, because for most of their lives we had a very tight relationship. We're very close, went all over the world together. We saw 12 countries on 3 continents. We traveled the US together. We sailed together. I worked from home my whole life with them. Growing up, I always worked at home, so I was always with them. So it's well documented. Those receipts are obvious and provable, but I feel like now with this toxic, you've got to pick sides, or you've got to think this about your father, or this is how I feel about your father. Your father is this, your father is that. So I called her out on it, and I said, that's parental alienation. And while it does hurt me, I believe as much as it does hurt me, it hurts them worse. So anyway, my son called me. He told me, he doesn't like me because of the things that the people I support. He said, mostly it's not even the things you believe or who you are. It's mostly the people who you support. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, so on. And I explained to him, I came around after supporting very liberal, very progressive people, and I've got, all the receipts. I had my support out there for gay marriage long before gay marriage even was a thing, long before 2008. I pushed back against the Proposition 8 that was trying to overturn gay marriage. I had very liberal heroes like Ralph Nader. I was a Nader, or sorry, a Nader Raider for 12 years. I supported Ralph Nader because of his National Initiative for Democracy, a fourth tier of government. I believed in that. I didn't believe in all of his politics. I believed in that fourth tier of government, and I supported him, and he's a very progressive liberal candidate. So all of that, and then I explained to him, look at Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii, long lifetime Democrat. Look at Robert F. Kennedy. I mean, he comes from a whole political lineage of Democrats. Donald Trump himself supported Hillary Clinton, funded her campaigns. Elon Musk funded Hillary, gave her money for her campaigns. We're all very liberal, very progressive people. But the progressive people went crazy and went too far left, and the pushback is that everybody's leaving the Democrat Party. Everybody's jumping ship that had any sanity, any rationality, any logic to them. This whole trans thing, transing kids, drag queen story hour, everybody's a Nazi who disagrees with me. All of these talking points of the left have pushed people out of the Democratic Party, and the progressive, push has been pushed back, and a lot of people are pushing back on it now. The very strongest of Democratic funding sources and supporters have pushed back and have changed sides. I myself have as well. You can even see in 2008 when Barack Obama was nominated, I congratulated him. I said, hey, I didn't vote for you. I voted for Ralph Nader. I supported Ralph Nader, but I believed in you, and I hope you keep your promises. He didn't. And that was the first major betrayal that, led me to, search out other things like Ron Paul. Anyway, he got into the topic of abortion. He says, so what if a girl who's 14 got raped, and, do you expect her to go through with a birth? And, is 14, he said, in a follow-up question, he said, do you believe 14 is a good age that people could have a baby? And I said, well, I'll give you an example. Now, first of all, I said, Ron Paul, who was an OBGYN, he's delivered over 3,000 babies himself. He has some views on it, and he was talking about somebody gets raped, give them an estrogen shot, it'll flush the baby out. There's no evidence of pregnancy. It just, you immediately give them that estrogen shot, it flushes the baby out, period, end of story. The moral conflict is all but reduced to nothing. I believe in that. Ron Paul said that, and I believe in that. I think that's a good, rational way to deal with, things like rape or incest. But when he asked me about is 14 an age that people should be able to give birth, and I said, well, first of all, Mary, the mother of Jesus, gave birth to Jesus when she was 15. She got pregnant when she was 14, right? By all historical accounts that we know of. And then I said, anecdotally, from my experience and your experience in life, when we lived in Puerto Rico, our landlord and our next door neighbor, who was a pastor of what was he, the Holy Roll, Pentecostal pastor, and him and his wife, something like 60 years ago, got married when they were 14 and had their first baby when they were 15. My father and mother were 14 years apart. My dad was in his 30s. My mom was a teenager. I was born when my mom was, I think she was 19. I asked him to go ask his mom about his grandma. When did she start her family? I think she was 16, or was she 15? I can't remember, 15 or 16 when she had her first child. I think her husband, my ex-wife's dad, was 18 years older than her mom. And I said that, back in, early parts of American Western history, young ages like, 15, 16, 17, 18 was an appropriate age to start a life and start a family. And then I said, at that age, people weren't pussies. They got on with their life. And I said, young boys would go off to war and fight for their country. The youngest known boy to go to war, and I was just pulling this up for his reference, was Sergei Alashkov, a Soviet boy who joined the Red Army at age 6 after his family was killed by Germans. And then you've got Calvin Graham, age 12 years old. Context, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy after an attack on Pearl Harbor. He served and fought on behalf of the United States, becoming one of the few known child soldiers in the U.S. conflict. Reginald Earnshaw, British Merchant Navy, age 14. He is remembered as the youngest known service casualty of the Second World War in the Merchant Navy. Now, this is just recent wars. This is World War II. In previous wars, even World War I and so on, there were much younger soldiers. Well, there were a lot of young soldiers anyway, not much younger than 6, obviously, but there were many young soldiers who fought for their country willingly. They would even lie about their age to be able to go fight for their country. Many started, working in coal mines or wherever they could find jobs at very early ages, age, 8, 9, 10. And that's not just, anecdotal, vague, unverifiable references. I'm here in the Philippines right now. And anywhere I go, my daughter was here, she can confirm it. She was here with me for 5 months. Anywhere I go here in Cebu, Lapu-Lapu, anywhere that I go, I see very young kids, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, out selling towels, candy, or asking for money or whatever, and they're working at very young ages. I myself went and swept barbershop floors, passed out flyers when I was 8 years old. Me and my friend Eric, who was older, he was 15, Eric Payton, I remember, we would go out and hustle. We would make money. We would go to Peter Piper Pizza, and we'd trick the little change machines into giving us free tokens. We would go to the barbershop, sweep the barbershop floor for $5. We'd pass out flyers at the coin shop for $5, $10. And we made money consistently almost every day. And I was 8 years old. I moved out of home when I was 12. I left and went and lived with my grandma. I left my grandma's house when I was almost 15, got my own apartment, provably worked a full-time job for the irrigation company during the summer and sold marijuana on the side to pay rent. My earliest Social Security contributions was when I was 14 years old, and minimum wage at the time was $4.25 an hour. But because it was a farm wage, I worked for $3.50 an hour for the irrigation company, and that was legal because it was agricultural, like a farm wage. And so I just think that this generation has become pussified by, and their mother will say, a woman isn't fully mature until she's 35. You being in your 40s and marrying a girl in her 20s is taking advantage. And so anyway, I just disagree. I just absolutely disagree. I don't think people are retarded until they're 35. I just don't believe that. I believe when you're an adult, you're an adult. There's a legal consenting age. That's age 18. I don't date 18-year-olds, but my last marriage was to a girl, and it only lasted 3 days until I got sick of her. But I filed for divorce 3 days after I had married her. But she was 20, I was 47, and it was more technical, it was more logistical. It wasn't love, and it didn't last. But nonetheless, she was a full-grown woman. She wasn't in her teens. She wasn't a child. She had been with men as old as me before, several. It wasn't like I was the first. I wasn't like, I was taking advantage of her. She was out searching out sugar daddies. She was out, making a career of that. And that's what turned me off to her, learning more about her sugar daddies. And so that's when I filed for divorce. But no, women aren't stupid until they're 35 or 40 or 50 or whatever. Mary, mother of Jesus, wasn't stupid when she was 15 and giving birth to the Son of God, to the most famous man in the world to this very day, 2,000 years later. Our neighbors in Puerto Rico raised a wonderful, productive family. Started that family at age 14. They were good people. He was a pastor of a church. His family, his kids were all accomplished and had professional positions and good families and a good life. So no, I think that this whole infantilization of humans is ridiculous. It's retarded. And I'll say that word. You look at animals in the wild we think are unsophisticated. They're leaving their parents, like horses who live 30, 35 years. They're leaving their parents at age 1, at age 2 at the most. They're weaned from their mother for sure by age 2 and off on their own, creating their own family, moving on with life. Dogs, cats, whatever. I mean, these unsophisticated creatures are moving forward with their life quickly. Humans are in arrested development in the West. Not here in the East, not here in Asia, certainly not in Africa, certainly not in, in other countries, even European countries. Some European countries are infantile, but not all. But we have regressed and have become afflicted with arrested development. That's my take on it. No, I don't think people are retarded, at age 14. Some people choose to be retarded, but I don't believe they are naturally, by nature retarded. I think that they're fully capable at age 14 to take on many, many adult things in life. And that may be a family, that may be a job, that may be both, that may be even going to war. How do I know that? Because thousands of years of human history say so. Anyway, check me out on disruptarian.com. This is Ryan tuning out. Peace.